E.T. and Star Wars have a lot in common. So we're gonna ask, what if? What if E.T., one of cinema's most famous extraterrestrials, happens to hail from that most famous of cinematic universes? Could E.T. have powers beyond our wildest imagination? Is E.T. a Jedi Knight, or even a Sith Lord? Watch this video and join ScreenRant as we explore how everyone's favorite extraterrestrial just might be a Force-sensitive Asogian from a galaxy far, far away. While you watch, click subscribe and hit that bell to join our notification squad so ScreenRant can keep you up to date on all the happenings in and around your favorite films. No matter where you go, we'll be right here. You might be asking how E.T. could fit into the Star Wars universe. Sure, the squat brown alien doesn't exactly look like Jedi material, but Jedi come in all shapes and sizes. When we were first introduced to Obi-Wan Kenobi, he was portrayed as an old wizard living in exile. In The Empire Strikes Back, Yoda hid his identity until Luke showed the full extent of his untrained impatience. Then Yoda could reveal to Luke that size matters not, and that the green guy could be a great Jedi Master regardless of the fact that wars not make one great. Once episodes 1, 2, and 3 were released, we met Force users in their heyday. The agents of the dark side weren't just creepy senators from Naboo. There was also the Zabrak from Dathomir, Darth Maul, and the elderly Count Dooku played by Christopher Lee. We met Asajj Ventress, a Sith trainee under Dooku, and Ahsoka Tano, a Togruta Padawan who studied under Anakin Skywalker during the Clone Wars. The prequels introduced us to the cone-headed Saurian named Ki-Adi-Mundi, the mask-wearing man from Doran, Plo Koon, who couldn't breathe oxygen, and Yaddle, basically the female Yoda. Jedi Knights are a pretty wide-ranging and accepting group. Some tend to always use their lightsabers to cut through their opponents, while others might prefer to rely on the traditional styles and tactics of their homeworld. So why couldn't a character like E.T. fit right into this open-minded group of diverse, Force-sensitive individuals? Now, we know E.T. may not have originally been made to be a link to the Star Wars universe, but Star Wars itself was initially created to be a one-off film. It stood on its own merits, and while George Lucas had lofty ideas when he made that first Star Wars, it was a pain for Lucas to direct. Honestly, not many other members of his team seemed to believe in the movie. It wasn't until the 1977 space fantasy made a killing at the box office that Lucas decided to really consider the ideas that we take for granted, like Vader being Luke's father, Leia being Luke's twin sister, and Jar Jar Binks being a bomb-bad general. With that in mind, why couldn't E.T. be a late addition to Star Wars canon? If so, E.T. would be one of the best reviewed Star Wars films to date, and the only one that takes place in our galaxy. Yet where does the link between a creature who landed on the west coast of the United States in the early 1980s and the universe of Luke, Leia, Han, Kylo Ren, and Porgs all begin? It all goes way back to a cameo appearance made by E.T.'s race, known as the Asogians, that was first snuck into the background of 1999's The Phantom Menace. You might be thinking that the inclusion of those E.T.s were just a fun little gag that the special effects team at Industrial Light and Magic was sharing with the audience. But if so, how come E.T.'s race has become a part of Star Wars lore? Also, why is its planet represented in the Galactic Senate of Star Wars' Old Republic? For many fans, E.T. is the seminal Spielberg film. It's perfect for kids and their parents. Through its top-notch special effects and phenomenal performances, it tells the simple story of a boy and his best friend. Since Spielberg and Lucas are buddies, and they collaborated with each other throughout their careers, the connection between E.T. and Star Wars isn't that much of a stretch. While Lucas was stressing out over the troubling production of the original Star Wars, Spielberg, still riding high on the success of 1975's Jaws, offered Lucas a small share of some of the profits from his soon-to-be released but much buzzed about Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Ultimately, that deal ended up being lopsided when Star Wars hit monumental success. Spielberg went on to reference the space fantasy in multiple pictures, including 1982's E.T. and Poltergeist. Thanks to Star Wars, E.T. received more of a backstory than its own movie provides. As we name-dropped before, in the Star Wars galaxy, E.T. is part of a race known as the Asogians. These guys were added to the continuity after 3 E.T.s appeared in the Senate chamber scene in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. You know, the moment when Queen Amidala moves for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum's leadership and all of those senators are waving their hands around. According to the Pre-Force Awakens expanded universe, their lead representative was Senator Greblights, who was charged with of treason soon after Palpatine's empire began. In an article included in HoloNet News Volume 53150, Grebleibs was able to allocate galactic funds to pay for representatives from his planet to explore another galaxy. This is ultimately a fun little reference to 1982's E.T. Now, if you're questioning the timeline of these events, since E.T. is basically set in the present and Star Wars is set a long time ago, maybe the timeline is warped by the hyperspace travel that E.T.'s spaceship needed to take to reach our galaxy. Do you think E.T. noticed all the Star Wars Easter eggs hidden throughout Elliot's room as action figures and toy ships? Probably, but the biggest point of contention that fans say in the Smoking Blaster when it comes to the E.T. Star Wars connection is E.T.'s Halloween scene. You just can't ignore the fact that E.T. gets excited when he sees a trick-or-treater in a Yoda costume. E.T. even says the word home when it sees Yoda. Sure, maybe E.T. just knows a little green man when it sees one, but if E.T. is from a planet that participated in the democracy of the Old Republic, it would also be well versed in the galaxy's history. Yoda addressed the Senate. It was a well-respected Jedi Knight, and he became an equally well-known enemy of the state when Palpatine declared himself to be the Emperor. We're here to decide whether E.T. was a Jedi Knight itself. E.T. displayed powers that only a Jedi could muster. Because E.T. was inside Elliot's bicycle basket, it allowed Elliot and his friends to float through the night sky and land far away. And while it's floating in that bike basket, the towel is wrapped around its head, much like a ceremonial robe worn by a Jedi Knight. The simple fact that E.T.'s spaceship returns to Earth, a planet hostile to its kind, confirms for us that E.T. is an important member of its species. Yes, good families don't leave their own behind, but the risks of coming back to Earth posed a danger to the entire crew of E.T.'s spaceship. If E.T. could be imprisoned, the rest of them could be as well. Yet, if E.T. was a Jedi, there's no doubt a rescue would be staged by the other citizens of its home planet. Plus, when E.T. phones home, not only is it able to create a phone with a far-reaching range just by using household objects from the early 1980s, it could have used force projection to boost its signal. If Luke could send an image of himself from Octo to Crate, E.T. can send a text message to its folks. E.T. isn't just using an umbrella, a speak and spell, and a circular saw, people. E.T. is using the Force. But what about E.T.'s ability to bring organisms back from the dead and ultimately revive himself? If you think that sounds a little less like Master Yoda and a little more like Darth Plagueis the Wise, then you're not alone. E.T. has the capacity to make wilted flowers bloom, and the glowing red in his fingertips and other body parts might be due to a concentration of midichlorians working in overdrive. But while midichlorians communicate with all Force users, only the Sith seem to know how to manipulate them to their own advantage. Could a nice little creature like E.T. be part of the same order that overthrew the Republic, stabbed Qui-Gon Jinn in the midsection, and only likes to wear black? Sure, he has the power to heal, which seems pretty benevolent. That all sounds like a nice family-friendly power, but there may be some darker energy behind it. First, E.T.'s life is tied to Elliot's, and the human boy is as sick as E.T. until the extraterrestrial severs their connection. You could argue that this is similar to Anakin and Padme's connection. It's hard not to notice that Padme starts to die once Anakin is perishing as well. On the side of that lava flow on Mustafar when he turns irreversibly into his alter ego Darth Vader. Since he never really lets go of her, she basically dies with his former self. Look, we know Padme ultimately died of a broken heart, but maybe that heart was made unhealthy due to her toxic marriage. If E.T. has the personality of a light side Force user and the powers of a dark side Force user, maybe E.T. is a Grey Jedi instead. The Grey Jedi were first described in the Knights of the Old Republic stories, and the title referred to Force-sensitive individuals who refused to side with the Jedi Order or the Sith. They forged their own path without succumbing to the dark side, and maybe E.T. followed this philosophy. This Grey Jedi idea is most likely since in Star Wars lore, the Asogians were kept under the strict rule of the Empire after Senator Grebleibs was seen as a traitor. Then maybe E.T. and his family were just fleeing the Empire's Jedi Purge. The Star Wars fans at Inverse refute this theory because while E.T. displays some fancy Force powers, he doesn't have a lightsaber of his own. But maybe his lightsaber didn't survive the journey, or perhaps he just wasn't a Jedi at the time of the 1982 film, and he's become one since. We'll never know until Disney makes a spin-off E.T. film after Episode 9 comes out, which they're obviously gonna do. Until then, we'll just have to keep theorizing. And if all of this is too much of a stretch for you, then just ask yourself, if Jar Jar Binks could be a Sith Lord, then E.T. could at least be considered a part of the Star Wars canon. you think E.T. is an Asogian from a galaxy far, far away? Scrutinize Spielberg interviews, freeze frame those Senate scenes from the Phantom Menace, and leave us your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, be sure to stick around for more videos just like this one on ScreenRant. Even if you think all of this is just speculation and might be too crazy to be true, never be afraid to ask yourself, what if?